Hey, welcome to the third episode of Haredi Chick Speak. And I must admit, I put in a little bit of effort, too much effort, in trying to figure out the perfect background. And only after I did I remember that there's that feature of immersive experience. So we have to figure that out next time. But anyway, on to the topic at hand. So 2 days ago was the Chag, and I spent it in the hospital with my friend, Mr. Cuddles. And it was really a moving experience spending the Chag with different people who were there, and a Seder with all different Hagim and all different people, all various reasons finding themselves where they didn't want to be, and really, instead of just making the best of it, turning it into a really meaningful experience. And just some thoughts and reflections on it all, and a little bit more about Pesach. So something that I've been struggling with is really to focus on the positive and not on the negative. And I think it really does have to tie in with Pesach, because it's not just Zman of Geula, the time of redemption, but it's also the time where we thank God for that redemption. And so it's really a time of focusing on what we can be grateful for. And on the other hand, it's Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's remembering all the troubles we had. We do have Maror. And it is a natural human tendency, in my opinion, an important part of the human experience is to focus on what's not good and what we want improved. They say change happens through the inability to accept what is. And so, as oftentimes in Judaism, and as in life, is that it's a dichotomy here of accepting where we are and living in the moment, feeling rooted in our place where we currently stand, and also dreaming for what's beyond the horizon. And so I think that it also ties into Pesach with the song of Dayenu. We say, if you had only taken us out of Mitzrayim, and not done all the nisim for on Paro, then that would have been sufficient reason to be grateful. And even though all of it ultimately led to the goal of having the Beis Hamikdash, having the opportunity to redeem ourselves and bring ourselves to our full potential, so what's the point of having any of that what's the purpose if the ultimate purpose of all of it is null and void? And that does keep us on that. We do want our ultimate goal fulfilled, but to take that time in the stepping stones along the way to be grateful and to really use them as those stepping stones and milestones to take from place to place to place, and not just keeping our eyes on the end goal, but really enjoying the journey and taking process of the journey, taking it all in. And so for me personally, struggling with my various various chronic illnesses that I struggle with. And I got a cold the day after the Chag, and I wasn't able to be with him, and I'm worried, will I be sick in bed again for a month? And will I be able to come again for the Chag, or will I have to be away for a month again from him? And I was busy holding him and feeling so sad how I missed the end of his neonate stage. And then I had to realize, be grateful that he grew. Be grateful that now I can be with him, even though now I got sick again, but be grateful that I had a week and a half where I was okay, where I was able to do basic cleaning of my house for Pesach and where I was able to spend the Chag in a place that was enjoyable instead of just home in bed. So we want more and we hope for more and we work towards more, but taking that opportunity wherever we have it to say, okay, what can I be grateful for today? And that's actually, I was reading an article about prompts for journaling to promote mental health. And one of the prompts was to write every day something that you're grateful for. And so, yeah, that was just something, even with financial goals. So various different medical expenses are a big drain on my finances. And it's very frustrating that some of the medical treatments I still need and that are paid out of pocket. And so many medicines cost so much money. But then I can step back and say, okay, but there's this other treatment that I no longer need, and that saves me that money. And at least I found medicines that some of them work, some of them are really money down the drain. And so it's a challenge, but it's a worthwhile goal to really pay attention to what to be grateful for along the way. And then another thing that, well, Pesach ties into Shavuos, and this was a topic that is also connected to something to do with NICU. So not Mr. Cuddles, but I want to become a NICU specialist, speech therapist who could work in the NICU with all different infants, various needs and various ages. And so something that I learned in the courses that I've been taking is that if a child is very difficult with digestion, so there's this kind of formula called NeoCate, which is an elemental formula, which means that it's the elements of the periodic table. It's made of as much closer to the original parts. So mostly one of the biggest components of formula or breast milk is proteins. And proteins, the same way challah or matzah, let's go to matzah because that's simpler. Matzah is made up of flour and water. So proteins are made up of amino acids. And so normally our stomach has to break down the protein into its amino acids and then we can absorb it. And so for babies who have a very fussy stomach or various different digestive issues, we give them a formula that's made out of amino acids. That's why it's called the elemental formula. It's closer to the origins of the element. And I don't know, it was just something that was inventing these connections, the idea of like getting to the source of something or simplifying things down to its original or simpler level can help us find that clarity and direction. For me personally, because I'm trying to keep this podcast to be more of a personal sharing podcast versus a technical one, where the Israeli podcast is more technical and factual. I'm searching for my place in, on this universe, specifically within the socioeconomic, psychosocial spectrum, and including the religious space. And I think like when you try, and including projects, work, career, where am I going? What will make me happy? Especially in managing all the different challenges I face to getting there and what to prioritize. I don't know if you heard of something called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that everyone has needs and there is like the basic, most fundamental of like life and food and shelter and warmth. And then you have the next level. I don't remember them by heart, but definitely above food, shelter, and warmth is social needs and identity, and then the top is probably something more closer to self-fulfillment. So we all have this innate need to feel fulfilled, to feel like our life is meaningful. But on the other hand, that's the tension between those needs and our demand of our time and our energy and our desire towards those versus basic functioning and a clean home and have earning money for basic food to eat. So, there's all these different components toward that make up a life well lived. And for me, the lesson of Neokate, and also just finding clarity and understanding the world around us, the world context in which our own environment is, break it down to its simplest parts. And it's reminded me of something that I've been learning recently in the Kuzari. That's actually more related to Shavuos, but for me, Pesach and Shavuos are such well-connected Yom Tovim. But sorry, a little bit of a brain freeze here. Cold here is making me a little bit unfocused. But I think with regard to my personal journey of religion is I was trying to understand why lately I've been feeling these strong negative feelings towards Judaism. And it's not the belief, those doesn't give me that negative reaction in pursuing, studying belief and strengthening my belief and in my understanding of the nature of God and man's essence and purpose and universe. It was more coming from the social side of it, and a few experiences that I've alluded to recently that happened to me recently. In my trying to understand what's bothering me here, I realized that my struggle is within the social aspect of living in the social community of Haredi people. But I can't just walk away from it because even if I was completely not religious, those are my people. But that's what's causing me great pain and suffering. And when I came to realize that I'm feeling triggered lately from past experiences, and something I've heard recently is that when you're experiencing PTSD and post-trauma symptoms, one of the most important things is not to avoid those triggering situations, those anxiety triggering situations, because that just breeds more avoidance and it feeds the fear. So from both sides of the coin, A, the people that I love and socialization, and B, avoidance is not a healthy thing. I know that that's not the right route. Should I confront some friends with uncomfortable disagreements that I've had? That's already another discussion. I feel like if someone's going to criticize me for being part of Hillel, shouldn't I have the right to respond and say, I disagree with you, it's not a cult. But on the other hand, can we just have friends who agree to disagree and we don't need to harbor on an issue? And then, I don't want to always be walking around with someone who's constantly negative and critical and looking to critique other people. But, where is the right place to say these issues within the community, I feel like, are wrong. And especially when faced with it. But the experience that I recently had was with a student social worker who was extremely rude and disrespectful. And I feel like it was this lack of professionalism coming from a place that she misunderstood that a professional position like a social worker, you don't act like a principal at a school or a mora in a classroom. And it was that kind of demeaning attitude as like, I'm the person in authority, you're not. Instead of, you need to submit to me, versus the collegial and respectful relationship that now I've come to realize with my current caseworker that it should be expected, this mutual respect of a client and a professional who, there's the respect for your professionalism and your expertise, the role that you're playing, and the respect for the client, for their participation and for the role that they play. And so I think the fact that she was Haredi was extra, it added another layer to it of, the whole reminding me of when I was bullied into believing you're not good enough, you have to be controlled, you have to submit, we get to decide, you're not allowed to decide for yourself how your own life is run. And so, yeah, I think, when people give me the feeling that you're not smart enough to make your own decisions, I love it when friends feel comfortable that they can share their opinion about an issue, about a topic. But when it's done in such a way of like, this is off limits and how can you even think of it? And it's clear cut that you can't make that choice. Instead of saying, this is how I feel about it. And, just that kind of mutual respect, I just get very anxious when I feel like people are trying to control me or dictate my life. That sense of autonomy is such an important thing for any human being. And so that's just some of the elements of it. I don't know where else to break down things into the elements of how to figure out to rebuild it up. But it does remind me of something, I guess this is very inspiring to me, is studying the intellectual side and the real concrete, finding my place where I can stand. And in the Kuzari, he was talking about that at Har Sinai, the Jewish people actually physically experienced the auditory sensation of hearing God's voice. And then the question is, how can an incorporeal being express and create a physical auditory signal? Like, how could God have talked as a human being for human beings to hear him? And the answer is, I was actually really shocked by this, the Kuzari saying that was the experience at Har Sinai, that it was actual visual revelation and auditory revelation, the actual physical senses. The Jews experienced God's presence and God's communication with us at Har Sinai. And even the luchos, how could it be that Hashem, an incorporeal being, wrote on the luchos? It's very difficult to wrap our heads around, but it's such an important point because that's really showing that we have that direct experience of connection with Hashem, that it's not just this abstract philosophical meandering about a higher power, because the Kuzari was disagreeing with the philosophers who believe that going to a higher level is just like thinking about elevated thoughts and being above. Whereas Judaism teaches that it's a real physical connection with Hashem. And it's a real tangible connection. And it's not always on that physical level, but on Har Sinai it was. And it reminded me, I think Christianity is sometimes so successful with the worldwide and ignoring Jews, is because it's built upon the truth of Judaism and turned into a lie. But that basis, the kernel of truth, is sitting on is makes it compelling. And I did hear once of Christianity saying that it was a God who came down to heal a broken world. And that feeling of the God that you love, that loves you, came down to commune with human beings here on earth. That's a very powerful story, because that's the essence of human, is that desire for that connection. And so the answer, the Kuzari does bring up that question, though, in terms of like, well, we're not Christian, don't believe that a God took human form to come down to earth. And the answer goes back to that Neo-Cade formula, the elements, is that the same way Hashem created the elements, and Hashem created the dark matter behind the elements to bring matter into existence in the first place, that same process that happened at Bereshit when the world was created, so too happened at Har Sinai. That's how we can also understand the Kriyas Yamsuf and all the macros, like how did those nisim happen? It's the same Hashem who created the world and brought matter into existence was able to use those same elemental powers to manipulate matter in order to give us that powerful communication and connection with Hashem. And so, yeah, I hope that this was inspiring and insightful. Right, the other thought I had, especially what brought up with Pesach, is on the one hand, it's very interesting. You have all these young mothers of babies who are sad to not be home, but on the other hand, it's such an exciting reason. You know, you sit there at the Yom Tov table and you hope that everyone there is just there for babies and not for sad reasons. And I did see one woman who I had seen a few weeks ago, and she had she had deteriorated. She had been through a surgery, and now she's recuperating, and it's a real difficult recuperation. And I didn't realize, she already knew at the time that she had cancer, and now she has a way longer road ahead of her. And another woman I spoke to, different women had just very challenging stories, and various different babies in the NICU, various levels of apprehension and you know, fear for their well-being and the effort that it's going to take to bring them home, hopefully. And so just being in the hospital really helped me, remind me, everyone has their challenge along this road of we're traveling here on earth, to be finding their path and building their most meaningful life. And you know, seeing people with greater challenges, on the other hand, seeing people with such amazing accomplishments, the people who put together the Yom Tov meal and the Shabbos meal every week. It's just really inspiring, the unlimited potential of where a human being can go. And you know, to just really be grateful and take in stride the minefields or pitfalls that you have along the way, and keep focusing on, you know, the greater picture. Yeah, I'm actually studying now chemical biology, which is really all about, you know, so incredible connections and disconnections and all different new things that can be created when you really study what are the most basic elements and what are the various ways of bringing them together. And so just some thoughts about Pesach and